From incidents that reshaped legislature to a recent collapse that claimed numerous lives, here are 9 of the world's worst bridge failures. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to They Will Kill You. Hit the like button and request any topics you'd like to learn about in the comments section below. Number 9. Interstate 35W Bridge Collapse. The Interstate 35W bridge in Minneapolis broke apart during rush hour on August 1st, 2007. Numerous vehicles fell 115 feet into the Mississippi River and onto the riverbanks below, along with tons of concrete and metal. 111 vehicles were affected by the incident. 13 people died, while 145 were injured and treated on scene by the rescuers or taken to local hospitals. Even though only a few vehicles ended in the water, there were victims stranded on the collapsed sections of the bridge. Some of the cars even caught fire, and a semi-trailer truck's driver was burnt alive in his vehicle. Even civilians took part in the rescue efforts, and the tragic accident remains in Minneapolis' history, changing how officials look at the safety of the state's bridges. After further investigations, it was revealed that the bridge collapsed due to a design flaw and not lack of maintenance, as was first assumed. However, in the aftermath, there was pressure on the state legislature to increase the fuel tax in order to provide adequate maintenance funding. Number 8. Seoul Bridge Collapse. During the morning rush hour of October 21st, 1994, a 154-foot central section of the Seongsu Bridge in Seoul sheared from the main structure and fell into the Han River. There were several cars, vans, and a fully loaded bus on that specific section of the bridge at the time it collapsed. At least 32 people were killed in the accident, and 17 were injured. After further investigation, it was discovered that the structural failure was caused by improper welding of the steel trusses of the suspension structure. The Seongsu Bridge had to be completely redesigned and rebuilt after the incident because of a weakness in the structure that could have led to even more deadly failures. Number 7. Hyatt Regency Walkway Collapse. 2 walkways at the Hyatt Regency Kansas City Hotel, one directly above the other, collapsed on July 17th, 1981. At the time of the crash, over 40 people were on the second-level walkway and even more on the third-level walkway, participating in a British tea dance. On the 4th floor walkway, almost 20 people were watching the activities below. In a matter of moments, the walkway dropped a few inches under the spectators before collapsing onto the second-level walkway. Both structures then fell onto the lobby floor below. The accident claimed 114 lives and 219 injuries. Number 6. Silver Bridge. The Silver Bridge carried US Route 35 over the Ohio River, connecting Gallipolis, Ohio, Point Pleasant, and West Virginia. It was named for the color of its aluminum paint after being built in 1928. On December 15th, 1967, the bridge was full of rush hour traffic when it suddenly collapsed. 37 vehicles were crossing the span at the time of the tragedy, and 31 of them fell with the bridge. There were 46 fatalities and 9 injured. The transportation route connecting West Virginia and Ohio was destroyed. It was later confirmed that the cause of the sudden collapse was corrosion of an eye-bar in the suspension chain. To this day, it's believed that the collapse of the Silver Bridge fulfilled the Mothman prophecy, which later inspired the movie called The Mothman Prophecies, released in 2002. Number 5. HINTZE RIBEIRO Disaster. The flow of water around the HINTZE RIBEIRO Bridge in Portugal was unusually fast on the stormy night of March the 4th, 2001. There were numerous cars and even a bus on the bridge when one of its pillars gave way and the central section of the structure collapsed into the turbulent River Douro. 3 cars and a bus that was carrying over 60 passengers fell with it, and the powerful currents in the water made immediate rescue impossible. None of the drivers locked in the submerged cars had a chance of being saved. The currents carried bodies downstream for more than 19 miles to the Atlantic Ocean. Some cadavers were even found on the north coast of Spain and even in France. There were a total of 53 casualties. It was later discovered that the HINTZE RIBEIRO bridge collapse was caused by 20 years of uncontrolled sand extraction, which compromised the stability of its pillars. Number 4. Quebec City Bridge failure. Approximately 342 feet above the St. Lawrence River, a worker on the southern span of the Quebec City Bridge noticed something was wrong. The rivet he'd driven into the site an hour before snapped in two. It was moments later, on August the 29th, 1907, that the giant cantilever collapsed into the river. There were 86 construction workers on site when the bridge fell. Only 10 survived, as the number of fatalities quickly rose to 76. Some workers ended up crushed by the twisted steel, while others were killed by the fall or drowned before rescue boats could reach them. A second disaster hit the Quebec City Bridge several years later, on September the 11th, 1916. A new center span was being hoisted into position when it fell into the river, killing 13 more construction workers. The bridge was finally completed in August 1919 after claiming 89 lives. Number 3. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Tacoma Narrows Bridge's collapse was one of the most spectacular bridge failures in history. After its construction was completed in 1940, it began rocking vertically in windy conditions. The construction workers nicknamed the bridge Galloping Gertie, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be open to public circulation. Traffic on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was first opened on July the 1st, 1940. On the morning of November the 7th, 1940, 40-mile-per-hour wind conditions caused the construction to move uncontrollably. At around 10 a.m., the suspension cables finally snapped, creating an immediate imbalance. The deck began twisting along its center axis. The motion lasted for approximately 1 hour before the bridge finally twisted itself apart. Witnesses later reported they could hear concrete cracking. One man named Leonard COATSWORTH was driving on the bridge shortly before it collapsed. As the structure began moving aggressively, he decided to get out of the car. As he was standing there unsure of what he should do, he thought about getting back to the car in order to rescue his dog. However, the movement was so powerful that he got thrown on the ground on his way to the car. That's when COATSWORTH decided his only chance of surviving was to get back to the shore. He crawled on his hands and knees for about 500 yards to get to the towers. When he safely got back to the toll plaza, he looked to the bridge as it was collapsing, along with his car and pet. COATSWORTH Cocker Spaniel was the only fatality of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge's collapse. Number 2. Angers Bridge collapse. Angers Bridge was a suspension bridge built over the Maine River in France in 1839. The construction was often traveled by marching soldiers in April 1850 when it collapsed. On April the 16th, 2 battalions of the same regiment of French soldiers marched on the bridge. When the 3rd battalion arrived, a powerful thunderstorm started. The windy conditions made the structure oscillate, and when the 483 soldiers began to cross it, their bodies acted like sails, further catching the wind. Although they were instructed to break step and space themselves out, their efforts to match the swaying of the bridge proved to be useless. Furthermore, the soldiers involuntarily began marching with the same cadence, causing the oscillation to increase. They were barely able to walk and avoid falling to one side or another when the upstream anchoring cable on the right bank snapped. Soon, the adjacent downstream cable snapped too, causing the deck to slope steeply. 226 soldiers were thrown into the river and could not be saved by residents of Angers, who came to the rescue. Number 1. Genoa Bridge collapse. The Morandi Bridge Viaduct was built between 1963 and 1967. It crossed the Polcavera River between the Sampedrina and Cornigliano districts of Genoa and was an indispensable daily transportation link for thousands. Experts had been warning for years that the structure was in poor shape and potentially dangerous when it partially collapsed on August 14, 2018, killing 43 people. A torrential rainstorm was sweeping the westernmost Pillar 9 when lightning struck the bridge. The cables in the bridge's southern stays snapped, causing sections of the road to tilt southward. Soon, connector sections of the roadway broke apart, causing the whole weight of the road to rest fully on the northern stays. That's when the remaining cable and concrete stays broke apart, as investigators later established after watching video footage of the collapse captured by a security camera. Approximately 35 cars and 3 trucks fell from the bridge. Rescuers managed to save multiple survivors, which were later transported to nearby hospitals in critical condition. Former goalkeeper of Cagliari, David Capello, was in his car when it dropped 100 feet before becoming wedged between parts of the fallen bridge. However, he survived without injury and even managed to walk away from his car on his own. In the aftermath, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte declared a state of emergency for the Liguria region. Furthermore, Deputy Minister of Infrastructure Edoardo Ricci reported that the entire bridge would be demolished and later rebuilt.